All right, guys, welcome to this episode of the HyperFast Agent Podcast. We've got an amazing guest today, a 6-year veteran in the real estate industry. He's actually been on our team for 3 years now, and about a year and a half ago, he made a big transition from focusing on retail buyers to investment and development in real estate. Welcome to the show, Cooper Stroman. All right, welcome to the show, Cooper. Glad to have you on.
Happy to be here.
Yeah, so you're an agent on our team, working a lot in development these days. But before we dig into that kind of stuff and what agents can do to get more investment deals, work with developers, give us the Cooper bio. How did you get here, and you know what led to this moment in your life?
The Cooper bio for the Keri Shull Team, not really sure where I'm supposed to look at you directly the whole time.
Anywhere you want, man.
Okay, cool.
That's your camera's there.
Dude, look at that, man. This is
conversation with
this
me.
Is amazing.
Let's just roll with it, buddy.
The Cooper bio for the Keri Shull Team is pretty long. I first got into real estate probably 6 years ago, and I just was like pretty much a lot of people. I think you're seeing $1 million listing and you're watching all these shows and you're seeing the commissions and stuff like that, and you're just like, this is the life that I want. So what I thought initially was that real estate provided a lot of flexibility and just the potential to make a lot of money. So I went out and I took my test and I ran to Long and Foster to start my career over on Capitol Hill. And again, that was like 6 years ago. And then I sat on the Hill for probably close to 2.5 years and sold 2 houses. Was trying to grind my way through some rentals during that time, working at a restaurant, and then still kind of applying for other long-term jobs. I think somebody from Indeed reached out to me, who was a recruiter for you guys at the time. I forget his name. What was that kid's name?
Zach,
yeah, out in California. Zach reached out to me and said, hey, I have this opportunity with this lady named Keri. This is kind of who she is. Gave me a little bit of a background. But I had already been following Keri on Instagram. So I was like, I know exactly who she is, and I'd love to sit down and meet with her for lunch. So maybe a little less than 3 years ago, I think, I sat down at a restaurant with Keri for lunch, and she kind of told me what the team could provide, and it sounded good at the time, and then you realize, like, in your first year after being on the team, that Keri didn't lie to you. Keri delivered more than on her promise, and fast forward to right now, and here we are doing multi-million-dollar development deals that came from Zach. So big shout out to Zach today.
We're closing on a deal today, actually.
Yeah.
We're going to make it into how many units? 6.
6 units.
Right?
Yeah. 6
so
units.
This is a choice between 4 big ones or 6 medium-sized ones.
Yeah. And over in Brookland. I mean, unbelievable location once again, and happy to actually get that one under contract and closing today.
Hey, that's a great thought. But let me get to this question that I just got from one of my followers right to my phone. By the way, did you know you can text me at 703-215-1684? This is a new thing I've rolled out. I'm letting my listeners and people that subscribe and follow me on social media connect with me directly to my phone on text message. It's me answering them and responding. You can ask me anything about real estate, investing, business, whatever. Just text 703-215-1684 and I will respond to you.
So when you first started off with the team, first like year or two, you were doing more your retail buyer, typical person looking for a home, move up buyers, etc. But now
you're more in development mode, right?
Yeah, absolutely. The first year I think on the team I did close to 24 transactions. And that was just through, again, like Dan was saying, just residential buyers looking for either condos, single family homes, a lot of first time home buyer situations. And it wasn't until I think, I want to say like middle of my second year, Keri just gave me an email, me and another lady, Ann, on the team. She was like, hey, I want you guys to sit down with one of my friends named Sunil Saxena. And she was like, I'd like for you guys to just kind of talk to him and engage kind of what he's looking for. He's more of a developer side of things. And at the time, I mean, I'd heard of a lot of developers and kind of saw what they did, but I've never actually met a real developer who knew what they were doing. So...
And Sunil, by the way, he is Sunil Saxena. He's the co-host on the HyperFast Wealth show, which is also on this YouTube channel. So if you haven't checked out any of those episodes with me and Sunil, make sure you do. But
there you go.
As you were saying.
No, so I sat down with Sunil and Ann for lunch right across the street. And Sunil was kind of explained what he did and what he was looking for. But he was also like, he didn't really think that there was a chance that we'd probably be able to find him deals in D.C. So... as soon as I had that conversation with him, I went back and just immediately started looking in a different way.
So he didn't think that
he was just like, the markets, you know what I mean? He was like, nobody's been able to really get me a good deal. So, I had been, again, like I said, I went back to the MLS and then started looking for investment properties for the first time. And then he was saying condo conversions were something that were really lucrative at the time. So, just after looking and looking, I went and we were able to find one in Northeast DC on 14th Street. Was our first project together. And it was a 2-unit at the time. And Sunil, after, sending him the numbers and kind of going through his pro forma that he had explained how he'd want it to be done, to kind of come up with the profit number, realized that we could make those 2 units into 2 really large units. And it's in a great location, and we were able to, I think, break those. I think it was a 2-2 at the time, 2-bedroom, 2-bath, and we were able to make it 4-bed, 4-bath by digging out the bottom and then adding an addition on the top. And that was our first real project that we did together. And
that deal we actually just broke down live on one of our HyperFast Wealth shows. So if you haven't seen that episode, not sure what number it was, Kelsey, but. She doesn't know either. But check it out. It was a recent show we just did. We showed you like the before, the after, the numbers on it. It was a great deal. Great start.
And to be honest, I mean, I didn't really kind of know what I was doing at the time. So that was like the first deal where Sunil kind of just walked me through the entire process. And I got to meet with architects for the first time. You get to meet with people dealing with underpinning and like certain things and terminology that, you kind of don't have when you're just looking for a residential home or a condo for a first-time home buyer. So it completely opened up my entire game to real estate and how people were making some serious money. So that was our first project. And
you invested in it too, right?
Yeah.
So you weren't just an agent, you were an investor.
Well,
how did that work?
So what Dan and Keri
rolled your commission, right?
Yeah, rolled the commission, and then you're offering 15% on the return over 12 months. So it's like if your bank's gonna just sit there and give you, 3%, 2%, 5%. Dan and Keri and Sunil are saying, hey guys, when this project delivers, whatever you put in over $10,000, we're gonna give you 15% back over 12 months. So the numbers just made a ton of sense, and there was a couple people that I told about the deal that also invested in it, and a couple weeks ago, I think it was like early March, we ended up by the time you forget about it, you get a check from FedEx in the mail with not only your commission, whatever we put in on the side on top of that, but then you get the 15%. So that was just that was the first project. And then I talked to Sunil, and Sunil was like, did you get your check? And he was like, I was like, yeah, I got it, man. He was like, told you it worked. And I was like, yeah, man, I mean, I knew it worked, but like, it's good to actually see it work.
Different when you open that up in the mail. There's nothing better than open up a check in the mail.
Big check, man. And you're just like, wow, and then you kind of forgot about the money too, because you're so busy still doing deals, looking for deals. So that was my first dabble, I think. And from then on, we've been looking for bigger and better projects.
So what are you looking for in a deal? And if there's an agent out there that's wondering, how do I got this investor, right? Like what do I look for them? Like what would your advice be to that? Like how do you do it, and what would your advice be to other people out there trying to get deals for developers?
At first, you look for, I've been doing it for so long now that like you kind of know certain areas, and like if you see something that like looks a little bit underpriced for that location, you kind of think, well, if it's, let's just say for instance, if it's an RF1, which is like a residential, you're allowed to build two units on that. So if there's an RF1 in a good location, you know that you could bump up and then go down. So you try to kind of factor in construction costs with that. And then you realize, okay, well, if it costs you, X amount for that, and then your out sale is going to be, X amount of dollars, the deal probably looks like it makes sense, especially if it's in a good location. So that's
like 2 or 3 things there that you just said that we should unpack a little that people need to know. You need to know the rules, right? The what the zoning is, other local ordinances, like, right? What can I take and how do I maximize it, right? Highest and best use. Like what is allowed that the current like owner does not want to do or can't do, whatever, right? What's allowed? What's my builder's cost to do that? And then how much will that end product sell? Like those are the kind of the components that you need to really know for your area, for your builder, in order to figure out, am I wasting my time even presenting this to them? Right.
No, absolutely. And again, I think that also comes through just patience from, the people that you're working with. So like Sunil and you guys, like, when you initially start off doing something like this, you're kind of doing it, when I started, it was based off of a simple lunch conversation. And then Sunil would just say, hey man, it doesn't work. The lot's too small. Like, even though I think you could do something with it, like after you talk to people that know what they're doing and architects and stuff, you realize that, you can't do certain things that you think as a rookie could be done with it. So I think it's a lot of trial and error. And like you said, knowing, like I didn't know about the zoning, you didn't know about certain things, and just having a mentor, and again, say his name again, like Sunil, it really helps you kind of learn this entire process. So you start with the zoning, and then location, I think. A lot of the times, if you can get directly to a seller, that's key. So phone calls, trying to call people to say, hey, I have someone that's really interested in your property. Would you be interested in selling that property? So I think the big thing is zoning.
Door knocking too, right?
Door knocking, yeah.
So, I think an important example to bring up would be Columbia, right? If you're getting, if one unit makes sense to turn into 2 or 3 or 4, right? Well, what happens if I get the adjacent properties, right? Because the more concentrated, the more density you can get, typically the better. Not always, but typically. And we had a situation in Columbia where we had 3 units under contract, and then you added a 4th one to that, correct?
Absolutely, yeah. So we had these 3 units in Columbia Northwest, awesome street, and Sunil, was like, hey man, see if you can get the neighbor next door to see if they might be interested in selling that unit. And at the time, I went to the door, I think, knocked on the door a couple times, no answer. And then as I'm walking down the stairs, older guy opens the door, screams at me, asks me what I want. And I'm like, I was like working for a developer. He bought the houses next door. I was like, and we'd like to see if you'd be interested in selling your home. And then he was like, no, I'm not interested in selling it. And then like as I'm walking away, I was like, hey man, sorry, man, no big deal. And then as I'm walking away, he throws out a number. Right? He's like, you'd have to give me, certain amount of money in order for me to leave.
What was the number? What number he threw out?
I think he threw out like 800,000.
Yeah.
Or something like that.
Isn't that what we paid for it?
Yeah.
Oh, we couldn't get it down lower?
Well, my thing is like dealing with just development itself. Like, if that's what it was going to take for him to leave, I went back to Sunil. and just said, hey, man, he'd be willing to do it at this number. And then Sunil was just like, yeah, that number still works for kind of the grand scheme of things and what we're trying to do. So after I talked to Sunil in the car, I went back up to the door and was like, hey, Mr. Wills, just a great guy. And long story short, guys, like this guy is like a friend of mine now. But was like, yeah, I was like, we could make that work for you. And he was like, okay. He's like, but he thought I was lying to him too. Like he was like, no, you can't, right? And I was like, no, I'm serious. I'll be back with like an agreement tomorrow. And then went back, sat down with him, went over like a listing agreement, buyer agreement, the whole thing, and showed him like an earnest money deposit for the amount of money and gave him the whole contract and was like, if you sign this, I was like, we can make this happen for you. Long story short, he ended up selling the house for a lot more money than he paid for it. And then he bought a condo right down the street from where he lived in cash. So, you know, he went from a situation that was like kind of not the best situation. He was an elderly guy living in a 3-story house in Columbia Heights that he literally only lived in the front floor for, you know, like a couple rooms, to an awesome brand new condo right down the street where he knows all of his own neighbors, where he can wheelchair over to the balcony. And it was just it was a situation that worked out for everybody involved, which was
doesn't always work out that way, right? Because you knocked on the next neighbor. After we got that, because we got 4, we're like, okay, what if we get 5 of these units, right? What happened when you knocked on that door?
Yeah, no, she threatened me a little bit and was just like, get off my porch, you know? But I think it was more so like, again, what people don't understand is that they don't think that you're serious a lot of the time, you know, especially like a young kid like me, and I'm coming to them telling them like, yeah, I can get you what you want for your house. So, you know, it just all comes through, it's a numbers game, but it comes through just, you know, having a conversation with someone to see if, hey, would it make sense if we gave you, is there a number that it would take for you guys to consider moving from your property? And if that number works for them and it works for us, then again, it's a win-win.
Hey, hold that thought for a second. Look, if you guys want to see a little bit behind the scenes of what goes on in my life, running multiple businesses, training for Ironmans, raising a family of lots and lots of kids, check out my weekly vlog on my YouTube channel. Go to bit.ly/Lesniak YouTube. And we put out an episode every Tuesday. Again, that's bit.ly/Lesniak YouTube. Check me out there. Leave a comment on the blog and let me know what you think.
Right. How many deals have you brought to Sunil that are under contract now or closed on in the last year or so?
I would say, man, like maybe like 5 or 6 deals. I would say but again, they're bigger deals.
Yeah, so you're talking 5, 10, 12 units,
15 units. I think is the most. Yeah. And then we've been in a lot of deals that just didn't end up working out as well. So I mean, for like the 5 or 6 that we got, we probably put in like 25 offers to get those 5 or 6.
Right.
So it's more so relationships.
And you probably looked at a couple hundred.
Well, yeah. I mean, we've maybe even put in like probably 50 offers now that I'm thinking about it.
So if you're trying to work for investors, or you want to be an investor yourself, you got to look at 50 to 100 deals probably for every one you'll do.
Yeah.
Right? You know, maybe you see 100, you write 10 offers, and maybe 2 of them get accepted.
Right. Yeah, I would say that's fairly accurate. But again, when you're dealing with bigger deals, there's just a lot more, you know, there's a lot more money involved, and there's a lot more process. I think that there's a lot more hurdles you have to cross to get these deals to the finish line. So that's obviously what takes, I think, a long time. And dealing with agents too. Like, you know, when you're this level of it, it's not your typical buyer's agent. There's not a lot of emotion involved in the sale or the transaction. You have to come at this like a shark in order to get them, because the agent, I think what I've been finding out more so than not, they're looking for the buyer too, right, themselves. So they'll want both sides of the transaction. So it's a game that you have to play in order to win. But again, there's a lot of money to be involved.
Yeah, and another hurdle we get in DC is the tenant laws. So sometimes you get a great deal under contract. We've got a contingency in there, and the owner's got to deliver it vacant and tenant free, because in DC the tenants can prevent sales, prevent development. Laws are really strict, so you got to be aware of those types of situations, and not just the laws and what you can do with the property, but the laws and the rule set on what things could prevent you from getting there, even if you can get there.
Right. No, absolutely. But I think it comes back to that point of like just being a win-win for everybody involved. So the tenants, like, hey, if you give the tenants more than enough money for them to be happy going to find another rental somewhere, that's a win-win. And that's the only way it works, is if everybody, comes to the table and agrees on, hey, this makes a lot of sense for myself, this makes a lot of sense for, the seller or the current owner, and it makes sense for the buyer.
Yeah, it's got to be a win-win for sure. What would your biggest piece of advice be for someone out there watching, listening, that wants to get involved with a developer or investors but hasn't done it yet, maybe doesn't even know where to start or who to talk to?
I would say, listen to Dan's podcast with Sunil. Come to those investor meetups, but try to find, everybody's an investor, right? Like everybody wants to, invest in DC, flip a house, do this, but they have no idea what they're doing, where do you even begin with your construction team, who a good architect is. So I would say, come to one of these meetings, or at least get yourself involved with a reputable developer that kind of knows what they're doing. That's probably the biggest piece of advice I could say, because again, you're going to get everybody in DC and their parent telling you that they're an investor and developer, and they have, maybe have flipped one house in Maryland.
Well, at first it's gonna be like finding a deal. Like you got to find investors, and it might take going through a few dozen before you get one that is a good fit for you, that you can add value to. Typically I think an agent can provide one of three things to a developer, right? Find them a good deal, bring him capital or access to capital, and getting them a good out sale at the end, right? So you got to focus on delivering on those three things. We didn't talk about it much today. The capital piece of it, though, I think is huge, because every agent in the world is going to say they can bring you a good deal and get you a good out sale, but very few can deliver access to capital. And investing in deals like you did is a way to put skin in the game and get more support behind the developers. So,
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think that even that portion of it now, like after we get that check in the mail for the 15%, right, it's a lot easier to say, hey, let's roll that over to, another deal, or let's show that to the people that, saw it on your Instagram or have thought about getting involved in real estate without, hey guys, you don't have to, go there with a shovel or anything. Like, here's, give us some money. We'll give it back to you in 12 months with 15% interest. That's a really good interest rate for today's economy. So
yeah, much better than stock market.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So it makes it easier when you can actually go to people, and that's the first thing I did once the check came in the mail, like to the people that I have been telling about this. Hey, we offer opportunities for people, and there's several people on the team that have invested in our deals, because again, to get that type of return, it's pretty good for the buyer or the investor.
Yeah, well, before I agree completely. But before we wrap up, I want to do the HyperFast round if you are ready.
Yeah, I've never done it, but let's do it.
All right. What's your biggest piece of advice to a new real estate agent?
Get on a team. Join a team that knows what they're doing and that actually provides you with training and leads.
Biggest piece of advice to a real estate investor?
Come to the HyperFast on Tuesdays or join the podcast, because you got to find you got to find a developer that knows what they're doing and actually has a deal.
Yeah, the meetup Cooper's talking about is the Arlington Grid meetup. Sunil and I put that on second Tuesday of every month, so check that out. What is the biggest challenge you've ever had, professionally, personally, whatever, and how did you overcome it?
I would say just self-doubt. Is kind of one of those things that you never think it's gonna happen, or you don't think that you're deserving of certain things. So I think like self-doubt is just something that translates to a lot of parts of life. And like even that deal on 14th Street, right? I never thought that deal was actually going to get to the finish line. And then like here you are, and you realize, wow, like you provided value for a company that
a lot of people, the end users, the seller, the contractors, all of their subs. I mean, there's a lot of people that
made some money.
Out.
Yeah.
Right.
And I would also say lastly, just challenge yourself in different ways. Like, I went from doing a lot of the residential stuff and dealing with people to, just stepping out and trying something completely new and realize it. And I mean, it's just a game changer. So challenge yourself in this particular business.
All right. If you're not selling real estate, what are you up to?
I mean, I'm trying to dabble in the music business a little bit, and taking care of the kids, being a dad, a teacher, and then releasing the stress from all of that at the gym.
Yeah, I've seen you on the pull-up bar on the Instagram.
Have to. Yeah, a buddy of mine way back in the day when I was younger, ex-military, he was just pull-ups and push-ups, and that's been something that I've just been able to maintain for the last probably 10 years of my life. So, all
right, where do you see yourself 5 years from now, 2025?
2025. I'm still going to be on Capitol Hill. Probably, hopefully a huge house right on East Capitol Street, and still doing probably exactly what I'm doing now. That's the best part about this, is that, the harder you work, I mean, there's unlimited money here in real estate. So it allows you to kind of do a couple passion projects while you're still trying to focus on, making my own money. And I'd like to be a developer in some way myself, building bigger, better condos than people.
All right. Before we sign off, what's the best way for people to connect with you?
Instagram, probably just Instagram, because that's where you've been able to build.
What's your handle there?
Is it Cooper Stroman?
Okay.
I think. Is it Kelsey? Do we know? Can you check that for me? I think it's Cooper Stroman.
Doesn't even know his own handle.
Because I'm always, as soon as I get on that thing, man, I'm just. Cooper Stroman. Yeah, COOPERSTROMO. But no, I mean, I've been able to do so much just through Instagram, and it's just connecting dots from all over the world. You'd be amazed. I mean, when you're posting deals and you're showing, what kind of you're doing, people will DM you that have money, and then people will they're curious to know like what it's like. Everyone wants to talk about real estate. Everyone wants to talk about someone else's life.
Yeah, so, look them up on Instagram. You can see real estate,
little music,
pull-ups, push-ups, the kids, all of it.
Just the journey of how I'm out here in these streets trying to figure it out.
All right. Well, thanks for being on the show, Cooper. And
thanks for having me, man. I appreciate it.
Thank you guys for tuning in to this episode. We'll see you next time.
Thank you for tuning in to this episode of the HyperFast Show. Subscribe to us if you want to make sure you get the latest and greatest HyperFast shows. And remember, we love reviews. Reviews help us bring better and better guests and improve our shows. So give us the good, the bad, and the ugly. We hope you enjoyed the show, and we will see you next time.
Hey guys, thanks for sticking around to the end. I hope you enjoyed that video, and if you want to see more, click right here. And if you want 100 real estate tips from my best-selling book, click right here to download them instantly. And if you're new to this channel, click below to subscribe and turn on post notifications so you don't miss out. And leave some comments about what you think on the videos.